Okay, let's now go to a long plane trip, and we're going to land in the northern part of Israel at Megiddo National Park. Hi everybody, my name is Jacob Vercel. I'm a licensed tour guide here in Israel. I'd like to welcome you to one of the more famous places in the country. In Greek, it's known as Armageddon. In Hebrew, we know it as Tel Megiddo. Now, here you can see, I'm going to walk around a little bit. So, let's walk around a little bit, and you can see what a tel is. By the way, this is a national park, and it is just gone under a serious renovation. But what I want you to look at is this sort of hill that I'm filming now. And this is part of the walls of an ancient city be buried under the grasses there. And I'd like to take a minute with Tel Megiddo in the background. I'd like to take a minute and talk a little bit about why this place is so important. So let me just set the camera up here and I'll have a little chat. Be with you in a moment. Okay, everybody, here we are at Tel Megiddo. And I just want to take a few moments to talk about this place because in most Christian study tours, you will come to Tel Megiddo. The question that is asked, is this the Megiddo that John, the writer of the Gospel and the writer of the book of Revelations, also known as John of Patmos, is this the place that Jesus is talking about? Because you'll hear, and I've heard arguments that sort of say, no, Megiddo wasn't Megiddo, and it's really a misspelling of the Greek. We'll talk about that a little later. But my opinion, that is, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it's a duck. That is Megiddo. We're going to go there in just a moment. And the question that arises is, and why some scholars say that John was not talking about Megiddo, but was talking about the mountain of the assembly, Har Moed. Well, because in Jesus' time, Megiddo was a forgotten ruin. But we have to remember something. Jesus knew his Bible inside and out. He knew it by heart. And when I mean the Bible, I'm talking about, of course, the Hebrew Bible, which is split up into three parts. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. Yeah, the first 5 books, right? And then we have the part of prophets and writings. Okay, in Hebrew we call this Tanakh, which is an acronym of Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. Torah, prophets, and writings. Now, Megiddo was mentioned a lot, but what happens at Megiddo is a very, very important piece of real estate. If you control Megiddo, you control the most important ancient highway in this part of the world back then, in the West. And that was, of course, the highway that went from Egypt through the land of Canaan, or the land of Israel, to Mesopotamia, today's Iraq, Iran, and up to Turkey. Now, as we all know, the Bible is really the story of one family, the house of David. And if you look at the kings of Judah, the one who really comes off the best is not King David. King David is an adulterer. King David has someone murdered, has Uriah the Hittite murdered. He's punished for it, and God loves him. But the king who really stands out is, of course, Josiah. Josiah is an incredibly important king because he rebuilds the wall of the city. He rebuilds, he fixes up the temple. He gets rid of the high places in the land of Israel, in the kingdom of Judah. But he dies tragically, guess where? Here at Megiddo. Now Jesus knows all this. And of course, so does John. And when John talks about the end of things, the war between good and evil, it doesn't take place here on the tell, but it takes place in the valley behind me. I'll give you a look at the valley in just a moment. So if anyone says, well, you know, Megiddo isn't really Megiddo, poppycock. Megiddo is an extremely important place. Be sure you come here on your tour. There's a little treat here, an added surprise, which I might talk about later, make another video. That's not the subject of our video today, but to show you why Megiddo, Armageddon, is such an important place. Let's go on. Okay, so here we are up on the tell. I've just walked up this path right here and notice the plains of Megiddo. Now you'll see there's a highway there. That highway, today's highway, is the same route of an east-west road, not the main road, but an east-west road. By the way, west is that way. That's north, okay? And that goes to the Mediterranean. Now, here we have the gate. This is the Israelite gate. And we believe that this gate is either built by Solomon or by later kings of Israel. Now, as we walk in the gate, and you can see we're not quite, they haven't quite finished the reconstruction work here, but we see these huge rooms that are very consistent with other cities built by Solomon at Gezer and at Hatzor. So when you come to Megiddo, you're talking about also Solomon. So again, the house of David. Let's continue on. Now, while we're walking here, you should know that Megiddo is probably the most important archaeological site outside of Jerusalem in the land of Israel. Now, the site has been excavated ever since 1903, and a lot of the work was done by British archaeologists under the auspices of the University of Chicago with Rockefeller money. So when you come here, you'll see these huge swatches of excavated area, and there's the plain of Megiddo in front of us. Actually, that's the Jezreel Valley. We'll get a closer look in just a moment. But you see this huge area, and this was mostly excavated in the 1920s and 30s by the Brits. Okay, so here we see the Jezreel Valley. This is the largest valley in the land of Israel, and it's also, as you can see, the breadbasket of the land of Israel. So this was important strategically. You see here today's Route 66, Israel's Highway 66, and that road right there, that's going northeast, that is the ancient Via Maris, the way of the sea. And that was the most important artery in the ancient world, in this part of the world. So, you know, the first three rules of real estate: location, location, location. This place was important. Now, exactly where it was, Jesus didn't have to know. He knew about it because he knew his Bible. And he also, and if you're wondering where Jesus is from, right up there where I'm pointing, about 7.5, 8 miles away, up that way, that's Nazareth. So Jesus is a local boy. He knows what's here. And he knows the importance of Megiddo. Now, as we look, we see this big swath of earth which was dug out, first of all, by the Germans around between 1903 and 1905. But guys, remember that Jesus wasn't talking about the tell. He was talking about the valley. And that's what John means when he says in Revelation 16:16, I'll put that in. So, my name is Jacob Fursell. This isn't a virtual tour of Megiddo. We're going to get to that because it is a really neat place, and I highly recommend coming here. So, Jake Fursell, licensed tour guide, signing off from the real Armageddon. Take care now. Be safe.